Okay, so we will open the meeting at 4:03 p.m. And I think we're good with membership. We have Ken, Cooper, Eric, Khalid, Steve, Jonathan, and then also Rich, alternates Rich and Bill are here. So, and Sarah and me. So I think we have very good full complement. So could I have a motion to approve the minutes from October 16th?
I move.
Thank you, Ken. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Eric. Any corrections or concerns about them? All right, all those in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
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 So we have anybody opposed or abstaining? Okay, so unanimous. I will ask, I don't believe we have any members of the public, but if we do, is there anyone who would like to comment on any of our agenda items from the public? No. Okay. Okay, so we have representatives from Frontier who have graciously agreed to talk with us, which is awesome. Just wanted to be upfront with the folks from Frontier. This is a public meeting. We are taking minutes, and the town of Kent has a policy that all meetings will be recorded and then they are put up on YouTube. So it is a very public meeting. So can I pass it over to you, Dave? So you can do introductions?
They can.
Okay, awesome.
So, yes. So my name is Dave St. Martin. I am the Director of Construction and Engineering here at Frontier, responsible basically for anything. If you look outside, anything that's outside plant that belongs to Frontier. So cables, poles, terminals, all the things you can see that can get placed, designed, and built, and ultimately transferred and removed. That's my responsibility. And that includes the fiber broadband bill that we're going to talk about today. With me today, I've got my peers, directors. Steve Crotty is the Director of Operations for the western half of the state. He's responsible for all the installation and repair of services in the western half of the state. And also with me is Joe Ferriolo. He is the Director of Operations in the eastern half of the state. Similar role as Steve, but in the other half. And they're responsible for all service installations, all fiber installations, and they have all the technicians that would go to individual businesses and houses to install and repair any of our services that Frontier would install. Now, Allison Ellis, she should be joining.
Yeah, I don't see her on the list yet.
Well, in the interest of moving along, I can share the presentation. Do you have the presentation or not?
I do. I wasn't sure. Would you prefer to share it, or
yeah, I can share it.
I have to make you have to make that available.
Either way, whatever works for you. If you want to share it, that's fine. I can just tell you when to move on, and if you want, I can share it. So whatever works easier for you.
Oops.
Let's let Dave share it, because that way he can do it at his pace.
Okay.
There's one more person on the Zoom that I'm not sure how to note.
Yeah, the name is Michael Wallach. Are you?
Yes, hello. Yes, I'm Michael Wallach. I'm a resident of Kent in South Kent, 4 years now, and I keep seeing in the first selectman's notes that nobody's volunteered to help with this committee. I'm not sure that's going to be me, but I thought I would join and learn a little bit more and see if there was something I could do.
Welcome.
Well, thank you. Yes, welcome, Michael. That's awesome.
We're glad to have you here.
So yeah, we have been advertising. We were hoping for people to help us with our communications plan, but so this is a great meeting for you to be at, because we do have these representatives from Frontier who hopefully will be able to answer some questions. So okay. I think I have made it available for you, Dave, to share. Can you share now? Oh,
I think
excellent.
I am sharing. I think you can see it. Let me know if you can't.
No.
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 Oh, okay. Let me try it. See what's happening here. Share screen. And we want this one. Share. How's
Perfect.
that? See it
That
now?
looks better. Yep.
All right. Let me start the slideshow from the beginning. All right. So again, thanks for allowing us to come and speak with you today about our fiber broadband build in Kent. And we'll make this interactive. So if there's any questions along the way, by all means, reach out. If I can't answer it, I'll rely on Steve and Joe to help me out. And if they can't, we'll certainly follow back up with you and try to get you answers. So just high level, again, Frontier, we embarked on a venture to build Gigabit America. And that mission was to basically transform our company from a traditional copper phone company into a fiber-based broadband data company. And that started after we came out of bankruptcy in 2021. And we embarked to build 10 million customer passings by the end of 2025. And so Connecticut was first and foremost involved in that effort. And so we were involved at day one, and we've built so far well over 1 million passings in Connecticut. So we've been building for the past almost 4 years now. And in fact, in the last quarter, we passed 381,000 locations across our 26 state footprint. In addition, as we came out of bankruptcy, we had some really finite, simple goals: operational excellence, financial responsibility, consumer centricity. Now, those mean basically we want to do what we say we're going to do. We want to build in a responsible fashion, and we want to build what we say we're going to build. And so far, we've built every single quarter to the commitments that we've made, and so far that's a good story. We see no reason why that won't change. And as far as consumer centricity is concerned, our net promoter score has continued to raise, quarter over quarter, and that's based on a couple of things. One, our attention to customer service, and two, the fact that we are transitioning our network from copper, which was, at times very unreliable, to a fiber network, which is very, very reliable. That's all playing into our increased customer service. So we're well on our path here to continue on. Oh, wrong way. So why is our product superior to some other companies' offerings? Well, basically because it's 100% fiber and it's 100% passive fiber network. And what that means is there's no electrical components in the middle of the network. So our central office is the base where all the fiber comes from. Those central offices are backed up with backup power. In the event of a storm, there's usually backup generators to back up the backup power. And as most of you in Kent can relate, there's not a winter or a season that goes by where we don't lose commercial power on a large scale basis. So most people now have a backup generator for their homes. And so if you have a backup generator in your home, our central offices are backed up. So even if commercial power is out across the entire town, our service will continue to run because there's no need for generators in the middle of the network. So as long as the fiber's not cut, it'll run. Other good thing is because it's fiber, it's really limitless as to the bandwidths we can offer. It's really only limited by the electronics on either end of it. So as technology improves and prices come down, our speeds can go up. And that's evidenced by our new max speed of 7 gigabits, which was just introduced right around Labor Day. Up until that, we originally launched with a 1 gig maximum speed, and then we went up to 2 gig, and then last year we did 5. So now we're up to 7 gig, and we're already in the labs to be offering much higher gigabit speeds to our customers as a regular product. It's not a special product; anybody can order it. The other beautiful thing about our network that differentiates it from other network is our network is symmetrical, which means when you buy a service, say a 7 gig service, you're going to get 7 gigabits download and you're also going to get a 7 gigabit upload speed. Anybody that's got cable TV knows and recognizes that the download speeds are usually 10 times faster than the upload. So for the longest while in my house, I only had Charter, so I was getting a 200 megabit offering, which I was getting 200 megabits down regularly, but the upload speed was only 10%. I was only getting 10 to 15 megabits max upload. So when we're on calls like this today with Zoom or Teams, those platforms are bandwidth heavy. So it makes it more difficult with all the competing devices at a location to be able to upload that amount of data with a non-symmetrical service. And ours is totally symmetrical, so the service speed hums. And like I stated, it's future-proof because any changes to offerings will be only affected by electronics at either end. So how does this benefit communities? Well, higher quality of life is one of them, and that ranges from everything from students. So with people that have broadband in their home, they can work from home, they can do schooling from home, college students. As you saw with COVID, we've also introduced and have the ability to support healthcare from home. It's not uncommon now to have virtual doctor appointments with a physician where you can't make it to an office or they're overworked. So all of that is basically supporting all of the things that folks need and want. I think Allison is trying to get into the call. So can someone
that's me.
kind of let her in? Thank you.
Sorry. Apologies.
No worries. And economic vitality is another component to that. So nowadays, high-speed broadband is probably top 3 of things that new people looking to move into an area are desiring. It's right behind electricity and running water. So when comparing 2 comparative properties, if one has a superior broadband connection over another, more often than not, that business or that resident will choose the higher bandwidth as the property they go. And so what that leads to is occupancy rates that are higher and additional building that happens in a town. And ultimately the winners there are the towns, in that as landowners are getting revenue from their rental properties, they're more able to pay their taxes on time, which is what all the municipalities require and need to be able to support services that they provide to their residents. This here,
Hey,
yes.
sorry, it's Allison. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to say hello to everybody. I was having issues getting into the bridge, so I apologize, but just wanted to say hello. And that I'm Allison Ellis. I'm SVP of Business Development for Frontier. So I know you're in good hands with Dave, but I did just want to touch base and say hello.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And Dave, if there's
We're in better
anything
hands now.
Yeah, sorry, you have the full complement. And Dave, if there's anything you want me to, anytime you want me to take over, just let me know.
Sure. No, I think I'm on a roll. I mean, if there's anything you need to join in on, feel free to do so. But basically, this slide here is kind of just a snapshot of Frontier in Connecticut. We basically, like I stated earlier, we've passed well over 1 million homes already and businesses throughout the state, which is basically a 475% increase from where we were back in 2021 when we started. We're a heavy employee company. We've got over 1,600 folks that live and work in Connecticut for Frontier, and it's scattered throughout the state. So we're local. We've got buildings that we pay real estate taxes on. So we're in every town, our central offices, our work centers. And, because we're a relatively dense state, we've got multiple central offices, 127 of them, in fact. And what that leads to is a really robust backhaul network, because every one of our central offices has redundant networks and diverse pathing. So if something gets hit on a pole and a cable goes out between Goshen and Torrington, that fiber link gets automatically rerouted around another way, so that there's never a disruption in any of our data services. So that's one of the benefits as well for Connecticut.
How many homes did you say you pass now in Connecticut?
In Connecticut, we're in excess of 1 million. And let me define that a little bit. Those homes we're talking about, the definition is called single family units, SFUs, because the phone company loves acronyms, so we use acronyms all the time. But single family unit, by our definition, is where there are 4 addresses or less in a single physical building. That's our single family unit build. And subsequently, our MDU or multi-dwelling unit build is where there are 5 or more addresses in a single business, in a single building, excuse me. And we differentiate those because MDUs are typically a little more time consuming and maybe difficult to build into because they range from condo associations, garden style homes with 4 or 5 units in a building up to medium range apartment buildings all the way up to high rises. Obviously, probably not so much of those in Kent, but MDUs require some additional work and conversations to be able to provide fiber to every unit in them, right? Because a lot of those types of buildings are older, so the inside wire isn't sufficient enough to support the robust and super speeds that we're pushing over fiber. So we've got to make arrangements to get a fiber drop from every one of those units back to the phone closet, and all of that takes discussions and permissions. So those are being managed. Oh, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
This is Allison, just to jump in on that, because I do want to make sure that you all understand how we do our fiber deployment. And I think the MDU is a good example of that, but also any other privately owned like homeowners association type property. So when we do our fiber deployment, we do it along the public right of way. And we are, doing the fiber to the premises capability past the location. We actually do not do the drop from the street to the house until the customer orders service. We need express permission to be on private property. So that's not part of the deployment. It gets done at the time that a customer orders service. We then do the drop. If it's something like an MDU or a private community, private roads, we will deploy facilities past that location that are sufficient to support multi-gig services to each individual living unit there. But just as with an individual customer, we have to work with the property owner. We have to get express permission to enter the property. And for those private communities, whether it's an MDU or a condo association type owned, or homeowners owned community, we have to work with the property owner to do the deployment of facilities on the private property. So sometimes it's additional facilities to reach any of the individual locations, but we will deploy in the public right of way sufficient capacity to serve those locations. So that's sometimes a little bit of I don't know how many of those communities you have in Kent, to be honest, but sometimes there are communities, and just wanted to make sure that you understood that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Allison, for the clarity. All right, so this is just a snapshot of a couple of our product offerings. And so we try to cover all different demographics with our products. And so the base product might be for more low income type folks. And that product is, again, 200 megabits and it's symmetrical. And that is offered at $29.99. And so anybody that has that kind of desire can certainly get our good speeds with that. We also have a 1 gigabit offering, which is $64.99. And for the vast majority of single family users, that might be sufficient. Now there are, like I stated up front, there are higher level data products that we offer, which is a 2 gigabit, a 5 gigabit, and a 7 gigabit. And those would be for folks that are doing data heavy applications from home, or some gamers, or that have multiple users that also have a lot of bandwidth demands. So they're ranging in all kinds of price points and data sets. So there's a little bit of everything for everybody. And obviously there are some value-added services that we offer as well. We offer digital voice, which is a VoIP platform. YouTube TV, we're partners with them. We also offer whole home Wi-Fi. For anybody that wants to be totally seamless throughout the home. We also have some security programs that we can allow or offer to folks that want cameras and all of that type of protection. And we also offer technician support as well at at a decent price too. So if there's anything that anybody wants around that, we certainly can offer it as well.
I would also just want to add that on our affordable offer, that $29.99, there's not actually an income requirement. That's available to anybody. It is the product that we put together following the expiration of the Affordable Connectivity Program, but there's not an income restriction to it. Anybody can sign up for that. And Dave, maybe I'll take the next slide and you can take the slide after that.
Certainly.
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead.
I think you need to advance it. I don't know if I can. Yeah,
Yep.
okay, perfect. So, you know, I know you all have been very interested in learning about what our fiber expansion has been in the town of Kent and where it's going. So the next slide will share with you where it's going, but I wanted to share with you where we are now. So we have deployed fiber past 465 locations to date. There, you know, I looked at the address data. I think there's just a bit over about 1,000 serviceable addresses within town. So, you know, we're getting close to about half of the locations. There are about 100 additional locations that we expect to, this says 2025, but Dave, correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's an error. I think we expect to enable an additional 100 by the end of the year. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah. How did I miss that on the air? Yeah, so the 100 that we're going to finish.
I missed it too, but I saw it now. So by
Yeah.
the end of the year, you're going to get some additional fiber capability within the town. I also wanted to just mention kind of where broadband grant funding is at this point in time. I know that communities have been watching that closely to see whether there's opportunities in their community. I will just say at the highest level that Connecticut is, and I recognize that there's still need, but Connecticut is one of the most connected states in the nation. So when the federal government was allocating money for the Capital Projects Fund, for ARPA money, and then for BEAD money, Connecticut didn't get a whole lot of money. In fact, under the BEAD program, Connecticut got the baseline of funding, which was 144 million, because there just are not that many grant eligible locations. Back when the allocation was made, which was almost a year ago now, I think there were something like 4,500 locations across the whole state that were going to be BEAD eligible. So the state is currently working on allocating the remainder of its capital projects fund. It had a grant round that it completed late this summer, early fall. And I think about $24 million was awarded. They're now in the midst of grant round 2. They have $10 million across the state to award. There are 30 locations within your town that are grant eligible. That those awards must be made by the end of the year under the rules of the Capital Projects Fund, and then the locations have to be built within 2 years, so by the end of 2026. We're looking right now at projects across the state to see whether or not we have projects that we think you know, we'd like to submit grant applications for. So I can't tell you if we're going to do it for Kent or not. I mean, I can tell you when you look at how much of the state that we have fiberized under our, you know, our own privately funded expansion, grant programs, they've been an important supplement, but they haven't been critical for our expansion across the state.
I have a question. Lynn, do you know what those 30 grant eligible locations in our town are?
No.
Find that out, Allison.
Yeah, I'll send you a link. The connected, so the broadband office in Connecticut is under DEEP. They have a map of eligible addresses. So I can send you a link to that after this meeting so that you can take a look.
Allison, I assume you're referencing the 30 defined as unserved in Kent?
They would be unserved or underserved. So that means that they don't have access to 25/3 or 100 over 20. I will tell you, anywhere that there's a cable provider, even though the service may still be quite modest, you know, 100 over 20, That doesn't count now because it doesn't count under the FCC's definition, even though we all recognize that connectivity needs to be much higher and it needs to be symmetrical in order to really have the best broadband experience. The BEAD program, as I mentioned, there's 144 million to be allocated across the state. There's not going to be a lot of grant eligible locations left. So that process is just now starting. We're waiting on the NTIA approving Connecticut's final list for BEAD of eligible addresses. And I will tell you, in other states, what we have seen is that there's been a big swing between what the initial grant eligibility was and what it actually ends up being, because companies like Frontier and our competitors and others have been doing a lot of expansion since these allocations were originally made. So, you could see the 4,000 or so in Connecticut go down to, 2,000 or less. I wouldn't be surprised. And then just one last thing on the BEAD program, just to sort of expectation set. That's a program with a very long tail. The state will have its preliminary awards, and those preliminary awards, which won't happen until 2025 sometime, those preliminary awards need to be approved by NTIA. That could take an unknown period of time, maybe 3 to 6 months. And then the program, the grants have to be finalized, contracted, and then it's a 4-year build program. So you're really looking at those projects, BEAD projects, being completed by 2026. Long tail to that program.
I have to clarify my answer, Ken, because yes, I am aware. We do know, based on the BEAD program, which are the unserved or underserved locations.
Okay.
According to the map.
Allison, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Allison, majority of our people who are unserved are on satellite, because they have very long driveways, and previous, broadband providers haven't been interested in serving them.
Allison, I'll change my question based on what Lynn just said to ask perhaps a too difficult a question for this call. So we do have a lot of those addresses. A lot of them are on satellite, but many of them are also Frontier customers as the LEC copper phone providers. I know this is we don't want to get into the politics of this, but as thinking for the town, how should we think about the confluence of broadband plans and what's going to happen on the telephony side and people who are Frontier clients today? And is there anything you can tell us that would help us think about this?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I will say is that we are not making customers change from fiber to copper in any broad scale way at this point in time. From copper to fiber in any broad scale way. What I will tell you is it happens naturally, it happens organically. When customers get fiber at their location, they sign up for fiber service, and then they take the fiber voice service. Fiber voice is really no different than copper. It operates the same. You have the same kind of phone, you pick it up, you say, you can dial 911, all the same. There is a requirement for battery backup in the instance of a power outage. We explained that to you. It's not a special battery. It's just a rack of C batteries. People oftentimes will just not put them in until they need them. But there are problems with copper service because of the age of the infrastructure and the fact that, copper voice is no longer a modern technology. So you will see across the state this evolution to fiber-based services. It will happen. We're not forcing anybody to do it at this point in time, but it's just the future. So,
Allison, I'd like to turn that question the other way, which is I can understand why you answered it the way you did. Some people are concerned about being forced to change services for good or bad reasons. Said another way, the 30 locations that are now underserved or unserved, is there a thought process in Frontier that eventually you don't want to be operating a switched copper network and you at some point want to get rid of it at some point? Because one of the challenges Kent's going to have, like many rural or semi-rural towns in Connecticut is we're going to have outliers who aren't being served. So if we decide as a town, which we may or may not, that we think 100% coverage for broadband.
Oh,
I'm trying to think of how we find service providers who are motivated. Frontier has a motivation in the sense that you've got, let's say, 30 clients who aren't getting broadband service from you, but are on copper.
That's not.
How are you guys thinking about that?
Okay, so let me just say that the BEAD program, in order for the state to get $1 of funding, the state must show to the federal government that they have a plan to get broadband coverage to 100% of eligible locations in the state. So the intention of the BEAD program is that there are no stragglers. There are no 30 left in your community that don't have access to broadband. Is it conceivable that they have a broadband provider other than Frontier? Yes. You could have, is Charter there or Comcast there?
Charter.
Okay, you could have Charter put in an application and win funding for those 30 locations, and then Charter is the one who serves those locations. But to your point, the BEAD program is intended to, work along the same concept of the rural electrification, program, 50, 100 years ago, which is everybody has access to the broadband service. And
Allison,
what we're trying to say, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, here's the disconnect from a layperson perspective, which is state has a plan to have no stragglers, 100% service. They themselves are not constructing broadband networks. They're offering grants to service providers to fulfill that need. Am I correct? The question is, how do we know anyone will raise their hand to meet that need? That may seem like a stupid question, but I assume you need two parties to agree to want to service it.
Yeah, so I mean, they have a plan which they've published and which has been approved by the NTIA. So it's on the Connected Connecticut website. There is a preference for fiber first in the funding, and then if there is not a fiber provider, then there are secondary providers that can be authorized, whether it's a fixed wireless provider, which is a good solution for a small number of customers in a niche deployment, or satellite is also an approved technology as a non-priority technology. So again, satellite, has a role to play in reaching rural areas. But in Connecticut, my expectation would be that you have pretty much universal fiber availability given the infrastructure that's already in the state.
I have a question, Allison. So, I think it's easy to say that our committee is broadly disposed to try to promote fiber, throughout the community. But it's our understanding that in order to qualify, you have to form a partnership with the provider to be able to install the infrastructure.
For the Connected Communities grant, yeah.
Yeah, and so the question, and what we've always reached out to other to providers is, how do we find out whether you would be willing and under what circumstances to partner with our community to to make a proposal as to this is how we would roll out this infrastructure.
Yeah. So what I will say is in the ARPA funding, there were where communities had money to contribute to broadband projects. There was a lot more discussion about public-private partnerships and, the formation of public-private partnerships. That's what my group was all about. So we have quite a number of public-private partnerships across our 25 state footprint. In the Connected Communities round 2, my concern is that, look, one of the reasons we want to have this meeting with you, we appreciate your invitation, is we're happy to talk to you about what your community priorities are, how we can get fiber further into the community, what are the things that you can do to help support that and help support our effort to make, fiber broadband available to as many people in the community as possible. In terms of forming an actual partnership for the Connected Communities Round 2, I think that would be very difficult to do in the time frame that is required in the program, right? These have to be awarded by the end of the year. Previously, I talked to other communities across the state, whether it was Sharon or Falls Village. And, I talked with them for 8 months or longer and still couldn't get to an agreement because the proposal couldn't get out of the Board of Finance or other obstacles. So I think it's probably not realistic that we would be able to reach a partnership to do an application for these 30 locations. What I will tell you is that may not be necessary because we are doing more independently financed fiber expansion within the town. And it's not like the BEAD, 5 years down the road from now. And maybe, Dave, I can turn it over to you and you can share the next slide. You can share with the committee kind of what we're looking at in terms of fiber deployment.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I was just waiting for a break in the action to say, let's look at the next slide, because that may answer some of the questions that the folks from Kent have, actually. So here we go. So this is another view of Kent. And these colored lines are basically the planned fiber builds that we're looking to complete within your town, whether it's already done or planned to be done in the future. So that would include the remainder of 2024 and then into 2025. So let me kind of spell it out a little for you. So the orange lines here are fiber that has already been placed and turned up. The teal color are fibers that are planned to be built that are not yet completed. So some of those teal are partially built but not totally completed, and the rest are what we will plan to build either through the remainder of 24 into 2025. So you can see from this view that we're covering a pretty significant portion of town. I'll stop there, and if anybody has questions.
Hey, Dave, does this map exist laid on top of the BEAD map, which is more detailed in terms of public ways?
This is a Frontier proprietary build map of where we're proposing to build our facilities as part of our Building Gigabit America plan. This is independent of both Connected Communities and BEAD.
I knew that. I was just trying to say, I'll put it in a layman's term. It's hard for me to tell where you're going.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's put it that way. Without.
If we had the names of the roads, then that would be a lot easier.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure how we can answer that. I mean, I could, because a lot of the 25 plan is planned, obviously, and it's designed. What's not defined for 2025 is our budget and schedule. So I don't want to sit here and tell you that Elm Street will be built in April, or another road will be built in June, because then when that doesn't happen as planned, Dave becomes a liar, right? And I don't want that to be the case, and I don't want to mislead you folks either. But I can tell you the current view is what we're proposing to build sometime in 2025.
Dave, Allison, I just, and I think I can say this on behalf of the other members, a lot of our questioning is coming from the perspective, we're very excited about what Frontier is doing for multiple reasons. First of all, as Dave explained, passive optical networking, symmetrical, future-proof, all these great services that we've lacked in Kent. We're excited about that, and we're excited about the pricing as well. So one of the things we've envisioned as our greatest challenge is less served, underserved, not served places. So we're really one of the perspectives we're taking is how big a problem is that going to be for us for how long, which you were attempting to answer, Allison. That's why we're asking the question about where you're planning to serve, et cetera. So we're very enthusiastic and not looking for, hard on hand promises, just trying to understand where you're going and when.
And maybe a related question, or maybe I missed it. The teal, that represents, you said, what we will have in 2024, sort of going past the houses, not necessarily connected?
Correct. That the teal color is the proposed fiber build that we're looking to do in the near future, whether that's the remainder of 24 or majority of that will probably be in 2025. And
Yeah,
so
just
all of those,
just wanted to make that clear that that's not all by the end of the year.
Can you tell us how far you've gotten? Because we know people in the village center, which is right in the area where the crossover of Kent, the words Kent.
Yeah, so you look at the prior map and you sort of explode it, right? And look, I've plotted on that map the 465 locations that are already fiber eligible. So you can scroll into that. This is a proprietary map, so you guys can keep it, but it can't be released publicly. But it gives you a sense of directionally where those locations are. So
Allison, I said this at the beginning of the meeting and you were not on, but this is a public meeting and we are recording the meeting. So I just want to make sure you guys are aware of that.
Well, I didn't know that. So
yeah.
I mean, certainly the last slide is not a public slide. That cannot be shared. This the slide before, I mean, these, if somebody at that location could pick up the phone and call and order service today. So that is not, it's just, we don't release our information in this manner to the public. But absolutely the last slide cannot be publicly shared.
Okay, I don't know how to edit the video recording.
It's already recorded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, normally committees have executive session in which this kind of thing is addressed. So
but you guys didn't ask for that.
Is
no, understood.
I apologize, but I did say that at the very beginning of the meeting.
No, you did. You did. I guess we could ask that the documents not be released. Obviously, this is being recorded and is going to go up.
Not really.
Maybe we.
I mean, I can provide you a copy of the presentation without the last slide. I mean,
I'll see what I can do. I'll see what I can do to block it out. But let's move on and not focus on this map.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the information that we as the committee were very interested in, because up until now we have not had a definitive information as to where Frontier was interested in going, and it was a little frustrating. So I would just say we should skip over these two slides and go to the next one.
Well, that was essentially the end of the presentation.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was basically it.
So why don't you guys stop sharing and then we can talk.
Okay.
And I'm just trying to get clarification while we're on the call, that there may be no additional locations in Kent that are grant eligible after these 30 in the connected. Sorry, I'm not being very clear. No. The 30 may be all that are grant eligible, whether they're funded through the Connected Communities Round 2 program or BEAD. If they're not funded through the Connected Communities Round 2, as I said, the state's obligation in order to get $1 of the federal funding is to present and get a plan and get NTIA's approval to connect 100 of the underserved and unserved and underserved locations within the state. So,
well, we've had lots of conversations with DEEP. We were trying really hard in the first round to try and meet their requirements, but we were unable to find locations and get the data in time by the deadline.
Right.
So we tried really hard, but basically, if Charter Spectrum was running by a location and somebody had the eligibility of hooking up, we
They were deemed served.
they were
That's
deemed
correct.
served. So,
That's correct.
so the other ones that, as I mentioned earlier, the ones that are clearly still listed as unserved on the map are satellite. And my understanding is that satellite does not meet the requirements. So I was surprised to hear you say that, because the documentation that we've seen is that satellite can't be substituted instead of fiber.
Well, not to get too in the weeds in the BEAD program, but as I said, the BEAD program has a priority for all of the programs have a service requirement, okay? Capital Projects Fund, the funded locations have to, funded broadband providers have to offer at least 100/100 capability, okay? In the BEAD program, there's a priority for fiber. And then there are not fiber providers that have received funding for that community, because remember, there are a whole lot of program participation requirements, including a contribution to the overall cost of the project. Then other technologies may be considered. A satellite provider that is satellite is an approved technology, but not as sort of a first line. And I will tell you that the low Earth orbit satellites, so those are the SpaceX satellites, have a much better performance characteristics than the older sort of higher in the atmosphere satellites that, were the HughesNet type service that we remember from long ago.
You're talking about the Starlink.
Starlink, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Starlink, yeah.
Problem, Allison, is price, data caps. It's
exactly.
There's no free breakfast, and also apogee.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Just Allison, just so you understand, we've kind of got a dual purpose or a dual mission. Number one, the Kent community is a very economically diverse community. And we have a large number of residences that are very high-end properties. And one of the things that we're concerned about is we want to keep the value of those properties pari passu with our neighbors in adjacent communities. And we understand that if the world is going to 1 GB service, that if in order to maintain my property value, I'm going to be able to have access to that 1 GB service when someone's looking at the value of my property versus the properties in another town. So we are very interested in rolling out as much fiber as we can to those homes. They're a little less price sensitive than others. Now, the second priority is because we're a mixed community, we want to make sure that we ensure that there are lower priced options available to the affordable housing segment of our community, which we are also expanding. And there are different places to go to and different incentives for those, but we need to look out for both of those. And to the extent that we can partner to ensure that the higher end properties get the higher level of service, we'd like to be able to ensure that some consideration is given to the other segment of the community too, so that they have appropriate access.
So one thing we could do, and let me tell you, I've talked with other communities about this. We've talked with Sharon about it, actually have a proposal before Ridgefield as we speak. Again, these are things that don't get decided very quickly, but Ridgefield's concern was just what you're sharing. They wanted to make sure that fiber was available to 100% of the locations within their community. And we'd already done quite a bit of fiber expansion. So what we did is we put together a plan for the remaining locations that, were too costly for us to independently fund with fiber, and said, if you want 100% locations, we can do these additional locations. The project cost is X, and we would need a contribution from the town of Y to match with our funding in order to do that. That is certainly something that we could put together if that's something you're interested in. Like I said, I've done it with Ridgefield, I did it with Sharon, I did it with Falls Village. What I will tell you is, the contribution that we seek is not, it has been quite modest, but there does need to be a delta that we need to close. And there just hasn't been to date really much appetite from the local community leadership to make that contribution. I will tell you, I was part of community meetings in Falls Village in particular, where there was very much a split within the community. Some said, I got fiber and I don't really care about anybody else. And other people were saying, no, we should make sure that everybody in the community has fiber. And that should be a priority of the community. There was just not public alignment on it. I don't know, you have a better sense of the pulse of your community members in Kent, but like I said, it couldn't get out of the Board of Finance because there was this split of, we don't have this extra money lying around, and we don't want to increase our mill rate at all. And so, it was.
Yeah. Well, we're at a bit of a disadvantage until we know what the number is, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be very, and look, I'm sure that the experience in the Kent community would be no different from the other communities, but until we know what that number is, and we can explain to the community and try to justify it, we're kind of nowhere. So I think it would be very important for us to at least to understand what the number is. Now, second of all, we've done a survey of a lot of users in our community, and they're very happy with their level of internet service. Now, even though it's very modest. And so we understand that there's a hill we have to climb because we've got to take efforts to educate the community on, what the future requirements are and why this is really important to the overall health of the community. But we're committed to doing that. And so we have a big education hurdle, to get over. And that's a challenge that we're happy to take on. But the first thing we need to do is we need to get a number. And second of all, we need to get some professional help to help our communications, direct our communications so we can begin to sell this to an increasingly broader group of people in the community.
Well,
Allison,
so I'm happy to take the lead on putting something together for you. I will tell you a couple of things, particularly with the holiday coming up. This is not something I can turn around in a matter of days. It's probably going to take a couple of weeks for sure. Certainly won't be in time for won't be, as I said at the outset, won't be in time for us to do any kind of public-private partnership for round 2. Of the Connected Communities grant. Doesn't mean we can't put something together for BEAD. Should there be any remaining availability, there may not be. The other thing I was going to say is, shoot, I'm sorry, I lost it totally. But
Allison, one question though, and this is, I know, hard to answer. You're still planning your 2025 build. There are one of the things that we're trying to understand, I know you try to answer it for us. At what point would you, Frontier, have the best sense of what holes there might be in your, I'll call it, organic plan, because you're still working on your organic plan.
Right.
So, we could have you do something right now. We don't like creating work for no work's sake. Obviously, we'd want to do it in the construct of whatever your organic plan is, and I know you're still working on that.
So typically, oh, I know, I do remember what I was going to say. Typically what we do is, so you guys know addressing information is always a source of difficulty. There are 9 different ways to say 101 Main Street, apartment A. It's just the fact of the matter. So, typically what we do is we work with the community to validate the locations that you deem locations within your community. We can provide, address serviceability information that we have and what our plans are, but then we typically exchange it so that we're working from the same master list, right? That we have alignment on what 100% coverage is. And again, that's something that we're happy to do. We'd have to execute an NDA in order to share that level of detail. Likewise, we'd have to execute an NDA to put a project plan together and to really talk in detail. That was my second point that I sort of had lost the thread on. I apologize. But, these conversations that we have to all be done on a confidential basis. Of course, we then, are happy to help talk with the community about what the benefit of a partnership is, what Frontier would bring to the community. All of us from Frontier on the call today, Joe and Dave and I have done countless of those in Connecticut and, in my case, all across the country. So we can help explain why the town may want to make the investment. I do think it is probably worthwhile for us to sort of take a step back, look at what our current plans are, look at what we believe the eligibility to be of remaining grant eligible locations. It's going to be a very small number. I understand that what you all are wanting is fiber to 100% of the locations. You don't want to just rely on the cable service as being adequate enough for now. A lot of, so I understand that. I'll have to look and see what we're able to provide before we kind of do a big deep dive, just so that I could maybe give you directionally, because that is something that then, sometimes towns say, oh, that might be doable for us.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Lynn,
in terms of,
Lynn, how are we able to sign an NDA given that we're...
Oh, well, this kind of thing is done under, like she mentioned, executive session. And so, and then it doesn't get recorded and minutes are not taken. Anything to do with like any legal type stuff can go under executive session.
Okay.
Is there any chance that you could get us numbers like before the beginning of January? Because we do have a very robust capital plan.
Yeah.
And if we could give the town an idea, we can try to start save. We have basically our capital plan is kind of like a savings plan where we put money away for 5 years, and then we can get access to it.
I'll certainly do my best. I will tell you that, Connecticut has an open grant round right now. They're doing they've just, the pre-applications for BEAD were due today. Then that means that the BEAD application is going to open up. We have to be preparing for that. So I will do my very best, and that's unfortunately all I can commit at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Let me get with the team and get some more information. And then Lynn, I'll send you an email that, if I think there's going to be an issue by not hitting January, I'll let you know sooner rather than later by email. I just need to check with the team to kind of see where,
okay,
what's doable.
Okay, we just have we have a annual town meeting where we present the capital plan in the 3rd week in January. So
the what week in January?
3rd week in January, but I'd have to have it before then because we'd have to go through the process of hearing it with the different boards. So, okay, thanks for that. Does anybody have any other quick questions they want to ask? I know we've been going an hour already. I think you answered.
Yeah, I'd like to ask one last question. Based on what you heard from our our group, Allison, are you encouraged that this might be a good place to be making an investment, or a group that might be receptive? I mean, we're committed to the long term. We're not looking to get immediate results. We want a long-term strategy that's implementable. We are committed to doing what we need to do to educate the community on the need to, and we understand that we're going to have to spend some money. And so I don't know that all the other communities that you're dealing with, have the same type of commitment in this. And maybe we're like everybody else, but maybe we might be a little bit more, might be better to work with. I don't.
Well, we really appreciate being able to talk with you. Let me say that I think your focus on fiber is 100% right. I mean, I think there is a subset of people that are happy with what they have, but my fear is that they won't be happy with what they have 12 months from now. And we do know, because this is just the past has shown us, that we as a nation, as broadband users, have an insatiable appetite for bandwidth. And this is before we get any of the newer applications into our daily living that are very bandwidth intensive. Things like virtual reality, augmented reality, AI applications. These are all very bandwidth intensive applications. So I think your focus on fiber is correct. And I will tell you, we have a tremendous investment in the state of Connecticut. We have fiberized, at 95%, I think, at this point of our service territory. We are working to, complete our fiberization. We are always open to partnering with communities in order to help bridge the gap. The grant funding, we've applied for it in instances because that can help. Sometimes it's, if your intention is to get those locations that are served but only served by cable, that's where a public-private partnership and some community investment is sometimes required. So I would say you should be talking with your community about the importance of fiber now, based on my conversation. And actually, this is particular to Connecticut, and I say that I used to live in Connecticut. I used to live in Easton, so I'm very familiar with Connecticut. But particular to Connecticut, they're just in the communities. I've noticed that there's a very stark difference between people's views of whether or not this is a important investment for the community. In other places, Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois, places with highly rural populations, they're like, anything that we can possibly do to help you get fiber to us, we want to be doing that. But for whatever reason, it's, been a bit more of a challenge.
We're the frog in the water starting to boil gradually.
Yeah, that's a great example.
Yeah,
it's just been
great
harder to
metaphors.
get cohesive community support. Not that it's not impossible, but and we can certainly support you in those efforts. But
hey, Allison, one last question, which I didn't want to hit this in the middle because we'll get off. Anything about the announced Verizon acquisition that is going to? Are you moving ahead with your capital plans, generally speaking, as intended? I know you're not going to tell us anything that's non-public information, but are you expecting Frontier's fiber plan to move ahead as anticipated?
Absolutely. It's business as usual for us. This is a very positive evolution of our company. It is a reflection that we've done a really good job of fiberizing our communities, not just Connecticut, but elsewhere. I will tell you that Verizon has publicly communicated that they will fulfill any grant obligations that Frontier undertakes. This is really an opportunity for us to combine with a much larger company, much larger capital budget, and expand, our fiber footprint even further. So all positive. It doesn't change the way that we're talking with communities or that we're undertaking our fiber expansion.
Now, something
It's
much
also not expected to close, just so you know, until early 2026.
right.
So.
Now, something that's
Who
much
knows,
more immediate. What's the background?
Oh, it's actually Machu Picchu.
Ah, I was
So-
going to say the Himalayas, but it's a different continent.
Yeah. Was a fun trip many, many years ago. So. Okay, so Lynn, should you be my primary point of contact, or
Yeah.
should it be Waleed? Okay.
Definitely.
Okay, so I'll send you an updated presentation that does not have the final slide. And then I will also just let you know if, from a timing perspective, if I think prior to January is feasible for the further information. Should I be sending you the NDA?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And then I'll have to involve the first selectman, so he's aware this is happening.
Okay, happy to do that.
We really appreciate all of your time and information that you shared. It was very enlightening.
Absolutely, we were happy to chat with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're very
much.
appreciative of Frontier rolling out broadband. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Back to where, oh, I didn't want to get into it with those guys, but I hope that the committee members saw that saw Marty's communication about the broadband door to door.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was pleased that he had addressed that and got some resolution. And so, because people seem like they're getting a little uptight about people knocking on their doors late at night and stuff. So, I did get one response from a gentleman, Don Kramer, and I didn't put it in I didn't share it with you guys, and I didn't put it in our folder. I just ran out of time. But I had put something in the First Selectman's newsletter asking for experiences with Frontier and signing up. And so he had some thoughts, which I will get out to you guys. Looks like.
We still have some Frontier people on the call.
Oh, we do? I thought everybody left.
Yeah, Joe.
I see Joe. Who is Bill?
That's Bill Watts.
Okay.
Well, we're obviously going to have other conversations with them. So
Sure.
I just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware. The communication strategy and messaging plan. Bill, do you have anything that you want to add? I still have not had, except for Michael. Michael's the first person who stepped up to want to help us with volunteering. But Bill, is there anything you want to say? Can you speak right now, or?
Yeah. So no, I don't really have anything new on that front. It's kind of, I think we were kind of put a pin in some of the elements around those op-eds in terms of some of the messaging. I think once we get that, kind of figured out exactly what we want to say, we can roll those out or finish those up in pretty short order. So just kind of, I think, waiting to see how we want to do that.
Okay. I can give you guys an update on the social media. Our idea of being able to start accounts ran into a major snag because I proposed a social media policy, and that has sort of now going through the very slow process of local government. So I did a draft, and Marty did a draft, and then Marty, Joyce, and Darlene are all working on it. So it'll eventually happen. But until we have the approved policy, they're not really excited about having new social media accounts. So we're kind of like in a holding pattern there, unfortunately. Don't think there's anything new with bead, as you heard from Allison. And then outreach to towns. Oh, we did update we created a document and updated all of our contacts of people that we've talked to from the different towns. So when we get to the point where we want to have a meeting with other representatives, we'll have an easy way to contact all of them again. We were like all over the mat of like some people we called, some people we had emails. So we now have a list of both email and phone for pretty much everybody, which is great. And then I'm down to 7 reports. East Haddam plan. I did make contact with Entry Point, but when I realized we were going to have Frontier here tonight, I said, can we talk with you guys in December? So they are very interested in talking with us. I did have a meeting myself with them to find out exactly what they did, and they were very forthcoming, and they shared that feasibility plan that I shared with you guys about what East Haddam did. They also recommended that I speak with a couple of officials in East Haddam, which I have not had a chance to do yet. So hopefully I can do that before our next meeting in December. But it sounds very interesting. Basically, the town of East Haddam wants to be the fiber optic infrastructure provider. And then they would contract with service providers to actually do the fiber service. So it's like separating this, this huge, I mean, obviously the town is taking over a huge amount of money to actually run the fiber, but and now and I think I mentioned last month, they're talking about like a USDA loan because they were not able to convince the state of Connecticut that they should get money through the bead. So
it's like a utility like the sewer.
Yes, exactly. It's exactly the way they're looking at it. They're looking at fiber optic access as a utility of the town.
Okay.
And they've done surveys and they're getting quite a bit of support. So they have launched a lot of this, what we've been talking about, the communications plan. They've been doing that for years now. So I will definitely reach out to their chairman and see if they're willing to talk to us about how they did that. The feasibility study did give a sort of a bit of a guide of how to do that. So I thought that was really helpful. But I think the people who were actually working through that with the consultant actually helped them. So I think that those will be good contacts for us to talk with. And I kind of am thinking after tonight, I'm thinking we can probably just run this as a parallel and see what direction we want to go in, because, it'll be interesting to see what Frontier comes back with in terms of numbers and places that they're willing to run the fiber to. Okay.
I couldn't tell from the map if it's gone all the way up Main Street. Rick, do you know if the fiber's now all the way up Main Street?
No.
The Frontier fiber or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The map was too small to see where
Yeah.
the end of it was, but
Okay. So
they initially told us they were coming up through South Kent Road. Remember that?
Yes. That they started in South Kent.
Yeah. And it didn't look like they had any circles going beyond the intersection of 341 and Route 7, other than just like the Elizabeth Street, and Lane Street.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I live in East Kent and in the Hollow, and I got an email from Frontier, some email advertisements. So I followed up on it, and it said put in your address and click, and so I put in my address, and I got a response back that said, "Good news, you're in our plans. And we'll get back to you as we, begin, get to the implementation portion of your road. But I was surprised.
It's cool. At least they didn't give you, well, remember in the very beginning, people were like trying to connect and they were like, we don't know what you're talking about. So,
Yeah, exactly.
so that's good. That's good. They
But
made some
it
progress.
literally had a place to type in my address, and I typed in the address, and I got an immediate email back saying that, this is part of our planned build out to include your residents. So,
Okay. Yeah, that is very promising.
Just out of curiosity, is anybody someplace between concerned or suspicious about the Verizon acquisition and all of the changes that may occur within the Frontier relationship, having to do with getting things done on a moving forward basis?
Well, I think Eric, we have to take her at her word. I mean,
yeah,
she
okay.
said that
I was just curious if anybody had any. I mean, I've been involved in some of those deals, and they all of a sudden everybody doesn't know which chair to sit in, and it gets a little sticky. But I was just curious. I guess it's just a lawyer's cynical view.
All right. So we are down to, is there anything else anybody wants to talk about? And we do need to pick next meeting because I promised the entry point folks that I would let them know when we were going to have our meeting. And I know it's complicated with the holiday. So I had guessed that we would, here we go. That we would get together perhaps December 11th or December 18th. Do you guys have a preference?
I prefer the 18th. I won't be able to attend on well, I mean, I could if we were really fast, but.
Well, I doubt we will be if we're
Yeah,
talking
I have
to
a 5
these
o'clock,
folks.
so,
yeah.
Oh, the 18th isn't great either. It's the Lions.
Oh.
yeah, I have a dinner in Greenwich at 5 o'clock on the 18th. So I would prefer the 11th, to tell you the truth.
How about if I send out well, the people on this call, can you guys all make the 11th other than Sarah? Or you're saying, Sarah, you could be here for part of the meeting?
Yeah.
Okay. We could try to be efficient.
I mean, I could do the 18th as long as it's much earlier in the day. I couldn't do a 4 o'clock on the 18th. I could probably do a 2 o'clock or something like that.
Can't do the 11th.
You can't, Steve. Okay. Well, I guess what I'll do is I'll send out a note and see if we can get 5 people at either one of those dates, and see, because yeah, that's easier since we've lost so many people. All right, folks, I very much appreciate it. Thank you very much, Michael. Is there anything you wanted to say before we sign off and adjourn?
No, I just like I said, I'm being a fly on the wall right now, trying to figure out if there's anything that I could contribute. I would need more direction at this point to
okay
know what you would need.
Well, thank you. I will reach out to you and we will talk, and I'll try to explain to you what we're trying to do with the communication stuff, in case that's interesting to you at all. Because we definitely could use some help with that.
Lynn, did we pick a meeting? Was it the 11th?
No, I'm going to reach out to everybody because I don't have a good feeling that we'll have 5 people at either date. So
okay.
I'll just I'll just send out an email and hopefully people will respond so we have an idea.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you guys. Appreciate your help with all
Have a
today.
nice Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy
Yes.
Thanksgiving.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, Lynn?
Bye-bye. Yeah, I saw your note, Rick. That
Okay.
yeah, I'll try to see if I can figure out how to do that. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.